Ah, ahoy! I'm out here in some ancient wilderness, following this ancient map to some ancient treasure hidden in some ancient temple. I've been at it for a few days now, but I do feel like I'm getting close. It's getting pretty dark though. I feel like I should stop and make camp for the night. You know, there really is something peaceful about staring at a nice warm fire. Alright, that got boring quick. Oh, I know. To make the time pass by faster, I can tell a little campfire story. Join me by the fire as I tell the story of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings.
Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. Why am I playing this?
Cause they're f***ing coming for me.
Let's start at the beginning. I'm a gamer, just making that clear for anyone who hasn't caught on yet. Growing up, I was really into collecting games for all the consoles I owned, but then 2012 hit, the world ended via me losing interest in my hobby. This in large came from the fact that the consoles I owned at the time were all slowly starting to deteriorate. I came home once and saw my SNES was just a bunch of sand. But let's focus on the Wii here. My Wii stopped being able to read discs, and no matter how hard I tried to fix the problem, it just couldn't be done. So with a Wii that didn't work and not having the money to buy a new one, I decided to just cut my losses and sell my games off on the internet. Yeah, I know, f*** this guy. I did have the foresight to hang on to some games that meant a lot to me growing up, like Mario Galaxy, Smash Bros. Brawl, Twilight Princess, DK Country Returns, Karaoke Revolution, American Idol, Encore, you know, all the classics.
Blah, 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 blah. What does all of this have to do with Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings? I'm getting to it.
So as a kid, I discovered the Indiana Jones movies and was marveled by them, the same way people were when the films first came out. And I kinda want to experience a game like that. Unfortunately, I didn't own a PS3, so Uncharted wasn't an option. So naturally, I looked online and found an Indiana Jones game for the Wii titled The Staff of Kings.
My younger self thought I hit the jackpot. I didn't find something like Indiana Jones, I found exactly Indiana Jones. Now, I do want to say this, I didn't care for the Lego games.
So I got Staff of Kings, played it, and don't remember liking it very much. I don't remember what it was, but all I know is that I never finished it, put it away, and kept telling myself I'll get back to it eventually. But then, as mentioned, Wii died, and while I salvaged the greatest games of all time, every other game I owned kinda went into the closet waiting to be bought online.
Like children.
Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings joined the closet. Fast forward many years later, I buy Legendary Fishing and reignite that old passion I had for collecting video games. And with the acquisition of a new Wii, all those games that remained in the closet were brought out into the light and had a new home. But then, it happened. My worst nightmare. Out of nowhere, it attacked. Someone bought my old listing of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings that I didn't even know was still up there. Now normally I would just be like, F that, I'm not giving it up. The problem is that it was all listed under my dad's eBay account and he was pretty adamant about going through with the process. I tried stopping it, but dads will be dads. I have to give this thing up. I did inform my dad to take any other games he had listed off, cause I swear if I have to send my copy of Boombox to somebody, I will send myself to God.
So there we have it. I have until the end of the day to send in my copy of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. And as much as it pains me to do it, I feel like the least I can do is kill my dad. Okay, plan B. The least I can do is play and finally finish this game before sending it to its new home.
So Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings had a bit of a rocky development. Originally the game was announced in 2005 for a release in 2007 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. A lot of fingers were in the pudding for this project, with a lot of companies joining in attempting to make this game as much of a true next-gen experience as they could. In 2006, a teaser was released simply titling the game Indiana Jones. It was meant to show how good the game was going to be, which was absolutely a gamble considering that apparently at the time of this teaser, it was only about 20% finished. The game got delayed and missed its original 2007 release date, leading to people to think if the game ended up getting cancelled. But then in 2009, LucasArts released a trailer for Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings and announced its release date would be later that very spring. And oh my god, this trailer looks gorgeous! The game looks incredible! Now this is the next-gen experience that we were waiting for.
And we still are. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings was not the game they showed at the trailer. This was a blatant example of false advertisement. The red flags were there. Considering that this game came out in 2009 and the only platforms it was available were the Wii, DS, PSP, and PlayStation 2, should have been the first warning sign. Because in 2009, with the PS3 on the market for 3 years now, they put it on the PS2. We are checking out the Wii version because this was the version that I owned. Plus, according to many, this was considered the best version that included extra content, which feels so weird to say about a Wii game.
Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings begins with our best buddy Indy out in Sudan, where he is competing with the Nazis in search for some ancient ram's head. We make our way through a canyon and a temple as the game teaches us how to play, and once we reach the idol in classic old adventure film fashion, the enemy party that's also after the same treasure arrives to claim what you got to first. In this case, our enemy is this German archaeologist Magnus Waller, and Indy skittles out there and fights his way through the Nazi camp and escapes. We make our way to San Francisco to find an old friend of ours named Archie, who has informed us on the disappearance of Indy's old professor. But when we get there, we see Archie's granddaughter get kidnapped by the Mafia, so now we are chasing after to save her. Now the controls of Staff of Kings are the main talking point for most videos on this game, so I'm gonna hold off on that for a second. Let's first focus on the visuals. God, this is a far cry from the trailer that LucasArts showed. Now I understand that games that make their way to the Wii aren't going to look their best on the Wii, but even if we don't take into account the egregiously falsified trailer, the game looks subpar at best. The character model for Indy is fine, looks like a PlayStation 2 model of Harrison Ford, but the game overall is suffering from this weird yellowish sandy tint going on that kinda reminded me of Mario Kart Wii. The landscapes do look actually okay, though there is a very strong sometimes attached to it. Like, I don't know, the game wanted me to look at this sunset over here in awe, but I got too distracted by how this distant forest looked like a giant piece of broccoli. So we go on to save Archie's granddaughter, and now must find Archie himself, who was attempting to guard a jade sphere, so we head beneath San Francisco and find a cave filled with destroyed ships that we have to navigate and puzzle solve until we are ambushed by the bad guys. Indy also locates the jade sphere in a ball pit next to the bad guys. How the f*** do they not see it?
This is it! This is where I stopped playing all those years ago! I guess it was the difficulty of combat combined with the fact that when you die, the game sends you back to your last checkpoint, which makes sense. What stinks though is that you can't skip cutscenes, which means if you're up to a part that has a cutscene and you keep dying, you're watching that cutscene over and over again.
It's even worse when you get up to the tutorial on how to use the gun and the game goes through it step by step, and if you die by, say, accidentally running off an edge before the next checkpoint, guess what? You're doing the damn tutorial again.
Thanks.
So, you know, the game's unresponsive combat controls, coupled with the annoying fact that the game makes you rewatch the same cutscenes over and over again, was enough to piss off an 11-year-old me. This time I managed to get through it okay, committed to see the game through. We get the Jade Sphere and reach the surface where we pull a fast one on our good friend Valer and escape with Archie on a trolley, and now our next stop is Panama. Now anybody who knows Indiana Jones movies knows that there's a rotating wheel of romantic flicks. Staff of Kings introduces this adventure's female heroine, Maggie O'Malley, an Irish photographer who absolutely in no way at all made me think of Elena. We run into more of Valer's mercenaries and Indy fights them off and even helps save a local village who repay him by giving him the key to an ancient pyramid. We make our way through the woods and reach the pyramid where we get into a boss fight with some torch-wielding pillager. This is the only proper boss fight in the game, and the game misleads you with all these rocks on the floor that I thought I had to throw at him, but these are here for absolutely no reason. God, the f***ing audacity of LucasArts, I swear. Nah, you just gotta wait for him to blow fire at you 3 times, dodge him throwing a stick at you, and while he lights a new one, you gotta whip him and pound him. From there, we enter the Panamanian Temple and venture onward. The gameplay in Staff of Kings is pretty straightforward. The game operates on a checkpoint-to-checkpoint basis where you get thrown into a room where you either have to solve puzzles, find your way around, or just fight off enemies. It's very linear as you are on a straight path towards the end of the level and just accomplishing whatever tasks the game throws at you. Not much room here to do things our way, as take for example this one section here where we must raise 4 knight statues by completing mini dungeons. But you don't do them in whatever order you like, but instead you will always knock them out in this specific order, which is pretty lame for a game labeled an adventure. The lack of big areas to explore, coupled with how the few puzzles in this game are very quick and easy solves, prevents Staff of Kings from having that satisfactory feeling from beating a level, like how you get one when you beat a Zelda dungeon or a Tomb Raider temple. Anyway, we get through the Panamanian Temple and find our professor's notebook, where we discover the main prize at the end of this adventure is Moses' staff, and hell yeah, I love Prince of Egypt. We make our way to Istanbul in search for more information and have to find a temple to disclose the location of Moses' staff, and what was actually my favorite part of the game. The 4 knight statue part that I mentioned earlier that had us going through multiple dungeons was actually pretty fun to play through. And as much as I don't want to say it, but this was the closest the game ever got to feeling like Uncharted. I'm sorry, Indy. Though the game was annoying in the sense that this level had a lot of picking up objects and putting them in the right place, but if you drop it or miss your mark, you can't pick the object back up and it just disappears back to where you first got it. That was pretty annoying. In the end, we discovered that the location of the staff is in Nepal, so we make our way over there and climb the freezing summit until we reach a village where we find our professor who tells us that we must go find the staff before the Nazis, but then suddenly we hear planes! We look up and see nothing. The Nepalese village is attacked by the Nazis and now we must fend them off in a sequence that absolutely, in no way at all, made me think of Uncharted 2. Alright, I shouldn't delay it much longer.
Let's talk about the controls, the biggest thing everyone points out when talking about Staff of Kings. When LucasArts was releasing the games, they wanted the Nintendo versions to fully embrace the hardware they were on. Meaning, on the DS they utilized the touchscreen and the DS stylus, while the Wii version embraced motion controls and point-and-click gameplay.
Staff and Kings can only be controlled with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck combo. The GameCube controller and the classic controller won't work, meaning this sticker is a f***ing lie. Now, motion controls can make or break a Wii game. Wii Sports is an example of perfect utilization of the Wiimote and made it so that playing in any way besides motion controls would feel just wrong. Meanwhile, Skyward Sword is a prime example of a game that got hampered by leaning too hard onto motion controls, which dampened the game's reputation. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings is a case of the latter. Now let's first focus on the positives. The bullwhip swing while platforming honestly felt nice to pull off. Press the B button and swing the remote top to bottom to have Indy swing across a gap. Now on the other hand, with the negatives, we have everything else. Holy shit, do the controls reek. Continuing with platforming, whenever Indy is scaling a wall, the cliche of a section that's going to crumble to add some tension is apparent in this game, and you have to vigorously shake the Wii remote and nunchuck up and down. Some quick time events like when Indy's running from gunfire, stabilizing a rolling chair, outracing a f***ing snow leopard in its natural habitat, also makes us shake the controllers up and down, and boy is this motion ever so exhausting. Now at some point during each level, the game gives us some action sequences like riding an elephant where we run and gun or evade Nazis on a trolley. Some of these are not bad, but then there's the end of the Sudan level where we hijack a plane and must steer it through the mountains while avoiding other German aircrafts and not crashing. We control this plane by holding the Wiimote like a joystick and tilt to steer the plane with the B button firing our weapon. Gosh, this part f***ing sucked. It's hard to fight these aircrafts because you aim by steering the plane, but it's hard to do that when you're also trying to avoid the terrain. The fact that it's so sensitive coupled with how we as humans are prone to overcorrection just causes us to spiral out of control. Now this is to all my Wii brethren out there. Do you remember Super Mario Galaxy? Remember that awful balancing ball star and how painful that was? Well, this is 5 times worse. Now let's talk about the combat. One thing Staff of Kings really advertised even from its early stages is being able to use your environment to your advantage. Being able to take out enemies by smashing them against objects or using your whip to collapse things on top of enemies was something the game really encouraged. And I'll say it actually feels really satisfying using your environment to defeat the enemies. The game's always nudging us to explore the area before getting into conflict to see what we can use. But things don't really work like that because the way it usually goes is that whenever you enter an area where a fight takes place, it just kicks off without any warning. You don't really have time to explore the area. So it's less about planning something out and more along the lines of improvising as you go along.
The basics of combat is motion controls. How you shake the Wii remote will reflect on screen. Like shaking it to the side will perform a hook, while shaking it up will perform an uppercut. You can do the same thing with the nunchuck to do it all with your left hand. Now if you press B while shaking the Wii remote, you can use Indy's whip on the enemies, but don't get too excited, you freaks.
The whip is only used to knock weapons out of enemies' hands, interact with the environment, and to lure enemies into your grasp for a quick pounding.
Actually get excited, you freaks.
Now it's good to have this variety in attacks, but it stinks when the game either doesn't accurately read my motions or isn't reacting fast enough and then I take a beating. So thank God there are buttons for combat. The Z button is our saving grace here. Pressing Z grabs the opponent and from there we can get off some hits, shove the enemy onto others for some space, or if we approach something interactive, we can smash them into it by pressing the A button. Now if we're about to eat a hit from an enemy, we can press A and B at the same time to dodge their attack and counter it with our own strong hit. This was another saving grace. The grab and dodge buttons prevent this game's combat from being complete garbage. Now, the game only has 2 types of enemies, regular soldiers and big brutes that can't be grabbed, can't be whipped, and block your punches. You can only beat these guys with counters and by using weapons. That's pretty much it, so the game is really lacking in enemy variety. When it comes to gunplay, we only use our revolver in specific areas where Indy would automatically run to cover, and by using the Wii remote pointer, the game turned into Hogan's Alley, but with Nazis. I gotta say, I really enjoy these sections. While the motion controls blow for this game, the point and click portion is actually really well done and responsive. Sure, you have to shake the Wii remote to reload your revolver, but it's not too much of a hassle. Plus, Indy never runs out of bullets, which is very convenient. We use the nunchuck stick to move Indy around, which, makes sense. Though his fast movements do take a second to get used to because he just takes off as if he accidentally left something in the oven. I also want to mention this one annoying part in Istanbul where we had to time our jumps to these gears, but it wasn't just press A and he jumps. No, you had to account for him getting to pouncing position before he jumps, which made timing things a bit mildly irritating.
Overall, the controls in Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings are as bad as people say. While there are definitely parts that aren't too bad, most of the time it does stink hella bad.
Indy fights off the Nazis at the village and enters this temple where the staff is being kept. After solving some more puzzles and making our way through, we finally reach Moses' staff, and when Indy tries leaving with it, he gets cornered by Maggie, who reveals that she's actually an English spy sent to retrieve the staff. But then Vala arrives, takes the staff, takes the girl, and rather than kill Indy, he just sends him back into the tomb and blows it up to trap him.
No, don't f***ing kill him, it's not like it's the only logical thing to do.
Big surprise, Indy finds a way out, we go on this little raft ride, and somehow end up on Vala's war blimp. We make our way inside, but immediately get spotted by the Nazis, so Indy has a brilliant idea to use a piano attached to a crane to knock around the Germans. But hey, don't f*** up, cause one shot instantly kills us and restarts the whole damn thing. Holy shit, considering how wobbly this piano is and how bad the controls are, made this a rage-inducing experience that had me shouting at the TV, Indy, just use your f***ing gun! This is 100% the worst part of the whole game. It was so bad that even though I knew I was near the end of it, I was still ready to just not finish the story mode. It's just so stupid. What is a piano doing inside a German war blimp anyway? Anyway, we make our way through the rest of the blimp and fight through waves of enemies where it really becomes apparent how bad the combat controls are. This room especially was f***ing annoying considering how there's a fire extinguisher that if used by you or an enemy, it will go off and fly all over the room, knocking everyone over, and holy f*** did this annoy me. So we find Maggie, free her, and then we reach Valar, who's with our professor.
Right. I forgot to mention this. Both Indy and Valar studied underneath this one professor. I forgot to mention it because I didn't really care.
Valar tries to shoot Indy, but the professor takes the bullet. Indy goes to his body, turning his back to the villain.
Smart move.
Villain doesn't take the absolutely easy kill there.
Smart move.
And instead uses Moses' staff to cause an explosion that sends everybody to the bottom of the sea. But it's split, and we are now chasing Valar on a motorcycle. This final sequence is actually really cool. The visual of racing through a split sea was a unique experience. This is the final part of the game where we have to give chase to Valar as we avoid missiles and fight off other chasing enemies. Valar isn't really a final boss. The actual final boss here is, once again, the controls. Holy shit, are these steering controls piss. I died 0 times to enemies, Valar doesn't attack you at all. I died because of this goddamn steering.
This is sadly the whole theme to the game. Anytime it tries to do something cool or interesting, it gets ruined by the way LucasArts makes you play it.
Anyway, we reach Valar and grab the staff and he gets sucked into the sea in a really weird edit. Indy uses the staff to close the sea and celebrates his victory with Maggie until suddenly the staff turns into a snake and slithers away.
No, don't turn into a snake when maybe the bad guy has it. That'd be too easy.
What a stupid f***ing way to end. Indy and Maggie just let it go as if they didn't just traverse the whole damn world trying to find this thing after killing so many and losing friends along the way. They treated this grand prize disappearing like someone accidentally dropped a potato chip.
So the story of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, it's nothing special. It's a classic style adventure where there's this great treasure to find, but you only find out what it is about halfway through. Meanwhile, you're competing with some enemy force that shows up just as you find some kind of plot device. It took big inspiration from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and apparently the big boys themselves, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, both came to give their input on the game's story. And I do see it in terms of plot structure. What I'm not seeing is the meat on the bones.
Let's start with the characters. Magnus Valar was an uninteresting villain, and Maggie was such an inconsequential character throughout the whole story that I barely mentioned her involvement while telling the game's plot, and I didn't miss out on any important details. The game didn't do the whole NPC ally thing, probably because it couldn't. So Maggie over here was just relegated to cutscenes. They try making her useful by showing a cutscene here and there where she pushes a rock or something, but in all honesty, she was the least necessary character. But it's Indiana Jones, damn it, and he needs a female companion through this journey. Now the big man himself? Oh boy. Indiana Jones is a charismatic and witty character, and it's not here at all. Now this has nothing to do with the fact that he isn't voiced by Harrison Ford. This more has to do with how the voice actor, John Armstrong, just sounds bored reading all his lines. There is no emotion in it or sense of urgency, and it sounds like the characters were doing their recordings while trying to keep it down not to disturb the neighbors. The game's cutscenes are also pretty bad. It has nothing to do with the scenes themselves, but more along the transitions. Like sometimes it'll just cut to a loading screen aggressively and not let there be a nice flow to the cinematic.
Hang on, I'll get you out.
Also, this is my Indiana Jones fanboy showing, but I was bothered by how they didn't show a map showing Indy traversing the world while his theme played. Like, you can do this on iMovie, is this really that difficult? The soundtrack of the game is fine, it's generic adventure music that serves the game well, but nothing that pops at you or makes itself memorable. Gun to my head, if someone asked me to hum a song from this game that isn't the main theme, I can't do it! Maybe the menu theme. Performance-wise, the game does glitch a bit here and there. I don't have footage of some of these instances, so you'll have to take my word for it. Notable ones were where Indy one time just fell through the map during the San Francisco level, or another incident where in Nepal, Indy just floated through the level while in his fighting stance. Oh, but I do have footage of persistent loading screens popping at me for no reason. That definitely wasn't annoying.
This game's troubled development definitely showed in the final product, and it's apparent how far this game fell from its initial potential. This was supposed to be a next-gen title, but all it ended up being was a game that should have been released 6 years before it actually was, but even then it still would have been outclassed by all the other games that came out that year. Apparently during development, somebody brought in a copy of Uncharted and the team played it and saw that next-gen experience they wanted to create. So they made a gimped version of it. Anyway, let's check out all those bonus features that I've been hearing about.
Throughout the game, there are ancient artifacts defined in each level in the shape of glowing fedoras. Are they trying to say something about fedoras?
Better not be.
These aren't too difficult to find, some are just hidden behind corners, and some are even along the path. Collecting these unlocks things like movie trailers, extra skins, and concept art. I like movie trailers, especially those old ones that had that deep and vibrant voice describing what the movie was about to you. I miss that. Sometimes I watch modern trailers and have no idea what's happening and could sure use a deep, vibrant voice to fill me in. Concept art was interesting to look at. I noticed a lot of stuff that I don't remember seeing in the game, leading me to wonder if this was all left over from the original next-gen project. We also got skins available like Big Head, which is funny to look at and reminded me of DK mode from Perfect Dark. Also Han Solo, which is pretty funny because it was the focus on Star Wars The Force Unleashed that caused this game to get sidelined. Now the game has these things called glory moves, which are in-game achievements like killing 3 enemies with 1 bookshelf or beating the 1 boss in the game without taking any damage. The game has a bunch of these glory moves, but you only need 3 to unlock all the extra game modes, so you can just pick and choose which ones you want to do. Plus, Staff of Kings lets you jump into any level at any checkpoint, which made hunting for these pretty easy. The first unlockable game mode we'll be looking at is the Combat Arenas. This is just a survival type mode where you gotta go through waves of enemies. It's a pretty standard mode, but considering that it uses the motion controls from Staff of Kings, I wasn't gonna play it for too long. You can bring a second player into this, but it's turn-based, which is actually kinda lame. Now the multiplayer combat arena was actually a pleasant surprise. Take your friends on in either dogfighting or tank combat, and it's actually a fun time. The dogfighting does use the same terrible plane controls from the main game, but in a room with other people trying to avoid crashing and dying, and some plane pursuits actually having some cinematic intensity to it, made it a decent experience. The tank mode on the other hand was much better. You use the stick to move around and the pointer to aim and shoot, and yes, this is a fun multiplayer mode. The biggest challenge is getting people to want to play it, so if that doesn't work out, get creative. Now the big extra game mode that was exclusive to the Wii version was The Fate of Atlantis. Originally released back in 1992 as a computer game, Fate of Atlantis is a point-and-click adventure that features Indiana Jones and his female companion of this journey, Sophia, competing with the Nazis in search for the lost city of Atlantis. And hey, the game has an option to skip cutscenes.
Oh, it's already better than Staff of Kings.
And everything Staff of Kings lacked is here, like actual charm, Indy seems like Indiana Jones, and all other characters are likable. The fact that it's a bonus here seems like it's LucasArts apologizing to Wii owners who had to endure the horrendous controls. Now Fate of Atlantis is a good game. It's a classic beloved by the community and was at the time considered one of the greatest video games of all time. Leave it to Staff of Kings to f*** it up. The precision of clicks you need sometimes with this game is marred by how imprecise the Wii remote can be at times. It sucks more when you have to do multiple clicks to select what you want to do with what item and on what, but you misclick and now you gotta start over because the game automatically resets. See, on a mouse wouldn't be an issue, but here with a Wiimote that I have to hold with 2 hands to get the precise clicks I need is really tedious. We have one last thing to check out, and it's the co-op journey, available from the start, that stars Indy and his dad on a father-son escapade. It's a short side adventure with only 8 levels that me and my girlfriend couldn't finish, and take a wild fucking guess why! The first level features us on a raft where we go down a river with some of the most convoluted controls of all time. Jesus Christ, Staff Kings, how the f does Mario Party have better rafting controls? The next section had cooperative platforming and it was actually pretty good. Working together and helping each other solve puzzles was actually a fun time. Made me honestly believe that good things could be ahead.
How fucking stupid was I?
Indy and Henry get into a tank where one player runs and the other guns. To steer the tank you had to use motion controls and it blew. Oh, for fuck's sake, game, you had the perfect tank gameplay earlier and you fucked it up? It was at this point the game reached its ceiling with my patience, and I honestly just said fuck it, I'm done. Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings has some of the worst controls I've ever experienced. It took a game that would have otherwise been a bland adventure and made it much worse.
Now don't get me wrong, it's not the worst thing I ever played. It doesn't mean it's not down there. It just sucks because I really love this franchise and really wanted the next gen experience that Uncharted kept popping out and never got. The fact that Nathan Drake, at the time, was becoming the new face of adventure made me feel desperate to see Indiana Jones still have some fight in him. And instead we got this limp effort that won't blow your mind, will tire out your arms, and just leave you with this sad feeling that you just wasted your time. As glad as I am that I finally finished it, I feel like I would have been better off not touching it in the first place. I don't recommend anyone buy this. So who the hell did? And there we have it, the tale of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. It's a bit of a downer story. I had a hard time living with myself there for a bit, knowing that I sold the game, because no matter how much I hate a game, I still proudly hold it in my collection. Now, sadly, it seemed that I'd forever have a Staff of Kings gap in my Wii shelf. The money I got for it made me feel dirty, so to make a positive out of negative, I decided to put that money to good use and ordered myself another copy of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. It should arrive by the time I get back from my excursion. Ah! Perfect timing. All right. Oh, shit.